Welcome to Reno's World Podcast, where truth slips through the cracks and myth whispers in the dark. I'm Reno Rains. Tonight's topic, what happens when you invite spirits? We play an old movie in the background because, well, this is a podcast, and we like to keep things interesting. Buckle up, let's dive in. What happens when you invite spirits? It started with a knock. No one was there. Then the scratches came. 3 marks. Always 3. Then my sister changed. From the 2007 Journal of Danielle H., subject of a case in the Rhine Research Center archives. Hold up. Before anything else, understand this isn't your grandma's ghost story. This isn't Scooby-Doo. This is about what shows up when you ask who's there and what's been quietly tracking those invitations for decades. Rewind. 1868, Hydesville, New York. The Fox sisters. Everyone remembers the rapping noises, answers from the other side. But the aftermath? That's the part nobody tells you. Margaret Fox, the origin of the seance craze, publicly recanted. But before she did, she wrote this. Yes, it was us. We faked the knocks, but then something else started answering. Margaret Fox, 1888 confession letter. A year later, she was gone, health failing. Her sister Catherine followed 2 years later, both convinced something lingered long after the ruse ended. Fast forward, 1941, USSR, Operation Ostrander, top secret Soviet project experimenting with interdimensional awareness contact, buried under Cold War secrecy until it surfaced post-1991. In one surviving internal document, we attempted verbal exchange using a human receiver. Subject began speaking unknown languages, then attempted physical self-harm using the recording equipment. KGB report, folder 13B, declassified 1993. The project was discontinued. In reality, it was moved to a place in Kazakhstan codenamed The Vault. Of the 14 staff involved, 11 were later reported missing or relocated to health facilities under full blackout. Need American records? Good. 1973, Durham, North Carolina. Dr. William G. Roll, Rhine Research Center. Initiated Project Presence, focused on reports of strange activity linked to spirit boards. Over 5 years, 237 documented cases, but in 39 of them, the same chain of events kept showing up. A request, physical disturbances, personality shifts, mental and emotional decline. Roll never labeled it as spiritual danger. He kept it clinical. But he did say, something is answering, but it may not be who you think it is. William G. Roll, 1977 interview. Here's the twist. U.S. Army intelligence contacted the Rhine Center in 1981. Declassified FOIA documents confirmed they requested the full set of logs from Project Presence. Why would the military be interested in civilian spiritual encounters? Unless something about those events wasn't just psychological. Stop there, because you need to hear this next one. 1994, Idaho Falls, single mother, cleansing ritual. She records the entire session. On playback, laughter, deep, low, unmistakably male. Only 2 women were in the room. The spiritual practitioner suddenly collapses. Medical emergency. Later confirmed. No history of seizures or related symptoms. 3 weeks later, the woman's 4-year-old son begins speaking what she describes as an ancient language. Neither parent had any background in that culture or faith tradition. The child was barely old enough to form full sentences. Here's the kicker. University of Utah linguistics experts analyzed the recording. They reported the vocal signature didn't match any known human pattern. Frequency too low. Tonal variation impossible to reproduce naturally. A leaked internal email said, whatever made that sound, it wasn't human, and it wasn't trying to sound like one. Anonymous source, retrieved via Wayback Archive. Let's back up and look at the pattern. Across every belief system, every timeline. The invitation is the catalyst. The Sumerians feared the Giddim, restless shadows. The Egyptians spoke of the Ba, a roaming part of the soul, capable of returning with something foreign. Ancient Greeks built entire temples, necromantian, to request answers from the beyond. All of them warned, never ask casually, never ask unguarded, because whatever answers might not leave. 1999, Denver. Self-described paranormal vlogger Greg Winthrop hosts a live stream seance. He opens with, spirits, we invite you to join us tonight. 3 minutes in, the feed glitches. When it comes back, Greg has a nosebleed and he's frozen. That was his last upload. Investigators found his apartment marked with dozens of unknown symbols. None matched his handwriting. One matched a carving found in a Mesopotamian tomb from 4000 BC. You still think this is just folklore? Here's where my mind flips. Why do all these invitations across cultures result in the same 3 steps? The ask, the response, the collapse. Different languages, same rules. So the real question becomes, are we contacting something beyond, or is something waiting for us to reach out so it can reach in? Because what happened next would break every rule of logic we thought we understood. What happens when you invite spirits? Start here. 2006, Louisville, Kentucky. Local priest Father Alec M. is called into a home where objects are reportedly moving on their own. The family, a mother, 2 sons, claims it started after her eldest used a spirit board as a joke with his friends. Nothing happened that night. But 3 days later, scratches on the walls, knocking that seemed to come from inside the walls. And her younger son began sleepwalking toward the basement. Father Alec doesn't traditional rites. Instead, he observes, records the environment, logs the changes. He writes in his final entry, "There is a presence here. It is not imagined. It seems to feed on permission, on the opening of doors. Once allowed, it mimics, it adapts, and then it starts to change those who let it in." The church never acknowledged the case officially, but 6 months later, Father Alec is transferred, out of state, no contact allowed. 2 years later, he quietly publishes a limited print book under a pseudonym. The title, Guests Without Names. Jump now, 1979, Chicago. Parapsychologist Dr. Elise Palmer conducts experiments with EVP, electronic voice phenomena. She runs a controlled study. 15 participants. Each reads an invitation aloud into a blank recording, then sits in silence for 3 minutes. 12 of the 15 recordings come back with static only, but 3 have anomalies. One features a voice saying clearly, "I was waiting." Another has a whisper layered underneath the subject's own voice, mimicking them, but 1 word behind. And the last one, nothing audible. But the waveform shows patterns that shouldn't exist. Too symmetrical, too complex for natural variants. Think, Morse code but inverted. Her assistant, a former Navy cryptologist, tries to decode it. The result? A phrase, "Open the gate." Here's where it gets worse. 2015, Barcelona. An urban explorer live streams from a long-abandoned monastery. He jokes about summoning old monks and lights a candle in front of a fractured crucifix. Nothing obvious happens during the stream, but viewers notice things moving in the background. Frames glitch for a split second, then restore, but with objects rearranged. A week later, he disappears. Local authorities find his phone still recording in the monastery. Last recorded phrase whispered barely above static. He answered. They never found him. Pause. Let's step back. Every era, every culture, every story, same trigger. We ask, something answers, and then the shift begins. It's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's slow corrosion, mood changes, sleep disturbances, isolation, obsession. A case from Newark, 1983, shows this in terrifying detail. A young woman begins recording her dreams after inviting a spirit guide to contact her. Her first few entries are benign, but over months, her tone changes. She stops using names. She refers to herself in third person. Her final entry says, "I am not the dreamer anymore." The notebook ends there. Want science? Fine. 2019, Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Lab. A suppressed paper details a statistical anomaly when volunteers are asked to mentally invite a response into random number generators. Outliers spike only when the volunteers use spiritually oriented language, not random words, not visualization, only when they said things like "come in" or "speak." Something changed the output. PAIR shuts down quietly that same year. Their data archive? Offline. Only mirrored copies remain. Now brace for this. The Vatican's secret archive, yes, it's real, contains case files marked non-canon phenomena. An exorcist turned whistleblower, M, identity protected, describes requests for contact as the most dangerous form of spiritual initiation. He said, "We are taught to knock, but rarely told who might knock back. The most dangerous cases always began with an invitation. Always. His reward for speaking out? Immediate reassignment. Years later, dead of natural causes. Officially. But researchers close to the case point to a final entry in his private journal. This thing, it imitates prayer. Back to present day, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit. Thousands of people posting lighthearted attempts at communication. Filters glitch, candles flicker, voices caught in streams, and then accounts go dark. Videos deleted, people stop posting. Not always dramatic, but enough to feel the echo. So what happens when you invite spirits? It's not possession. That word's too old, too misunderstood. It's permission. You're not taken. You opened the door. And whatever's on the other side, it's patient, it's practiced, and it's been here longer than we can understand. So let's break it down. Documented? Yes. Hundreds of cases across cultures and eras. Speculative? Some of it. The interpretation varies, but the triggers, patterns, and outcomes repeat too consistently to ignore. Unresolved? Absolutely. And maybe that's the point. Whether it was misunderstanding, cover-up, or something far stranger, this case remains unresolved and very real. Tell me I'm wrong in the comments. I'll be there decoding waveforms. And if this cracked your brain open like it did mine, you know what to do.